हरिः ओम् श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। ॐ वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Om. Namaste friends. Today we begin a new text, Drik, Drishya, Viveka. It is a Prakarana Grantha, meaning a text which presents Vedantic concepts in a simplified form. The best example is Tattva Bodha, from where we learned all the foundational terms of Vedanta. There are 6 topics that are essential for any seeker to know. The first is Jiva, the individual. Second is Jagat, the world. Then comes Ishvara, it is God. Then Bandha, bondage or the cause of suffering or samsara. Then Moksha, the goal, liberation and freedom from all suffering. And finally, the 6th topic is sadhana, the means by which a jiva can travel from bondage to liberation. Some texts highlight only a few topics to explain them in greater detail. Drik Drishya Viveka is one such text which highlights the jiva and his relationship with bandha, moksha, and the sadhanas that he has to practice. Jagat and Ishvara are not talked about much in this text. It is a relatively small Prakarana Grantha consisting of only 46 verses, making it ideal for a beginner seeker. At the end of the study of this text, we should be able to clearly apply Viveka, or the power of discrimination or discernment between what is real or what really matters and what is not. This essential clarity in our mind will put us well on our way to spiritual progress. The author of this text is said to be either Vidyaranya Swami or his guru, Sri Bharati Tirtha Swami. Our respected teacher, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, gave us a very nice introduction a couple of weeks ago, and today we start the verses proper. Our speakers are Srimati Chetana, Sri Shiv Kumar, and Dr. Sanjay Banakal. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Panaga, for a very nice introduction for a new topic. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. I have already given an introduction to Drik Drishya Viveka. And whenever we start a new topic, one question always comes. Why are we studying Drik Drishya Viveka? Is it for us to know a new topic? There is always, for those of us in the path of knowledge, there is always that keenness to know. There is that jignasa in us, and there is always a risk that I'm going to be a scholar. But each time we study a text, this is to remind us, are we here for information or are we here for transformation? Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras classifies listeners into 3 categories: Kutuhal, Jignasu, and Mumukshu. Kutuhal is one who listens out of curiosity. What is Drik Drishya Viveka all about? But his drive is not very strong. His curiosity may be fulfilled, and then a person loses such an interest. A little more powerful listener is one who's keen to know. I want to know. What is Drik Drishya Viveka? Who is the author? How many verses? What is the deal with about? So this person wants to be knowledgeable. He wants to be a teacher. He wants to educate others. So when we listen from category 2, we come from the category of being a knowledge-oriented person. But Patanjali classifies an even higher listener called a mumukshu. A mumukshu whose whole interest is how I can be free, how I can discover my true nature, how I can discover that even in this body itself, I can be a Mukta Purusha, of how I can be what is called a Jivan Mukta. So, with that orientation, let us look into this most wonderful text called Drik, Drishya, Viveka. Let me remind you of what Swami Anubhavananda has to say on a spiritual life, or on a message for all of us who are spiritual seekers. The life of a spiritual seeker, or being a spiritual seeker, is not a part-time occupation. It is not that once in a week or at some particular time that I become interested in a particular topic. He gives a new term. It is a full-time preoccupation. Other than this desire, and I want to know myself, I want to be a Mukta Purusha, and therefore, whatever I have to do all comes in the background. The foreground is I am here to discover myself. I have Manushutvam, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha. I have the gift of a human body with this intellect. I have the glory of being uh, assisted by great acharyas, by great teachers, and that there is a burning desire in me. And therefore, let this seeker in me be a full-time preoccupation. What is Hridaya Granthi? We are all born with this knot in my heart. Swami Anubhavananda calls it a naughty knot. It's like a tie knot. Now, supposing you remove a tie, you will see there is a knot. It looks like a knot, but it is really not a knot, because if you pull it, you will see there is no knot. So, this Hridaya Granthi is supposed to be extremely old knot. Old knot means sometimes if a knot has been tied and it's been there for a long time, then we work around it because we don't try to remove it, because disentangling this may be extremely difficult. So it is not an ordinary knot, it is a extremely difficult and a tight knot within the heart. So the basic problem of a Hridaya Granthi is avidya, or ignorance of my true nature. But the ignorance has many byproducts. And because I do not know, there is a triad, avidya kama karma. So somebody asks you what is Hridaya Granthi, immediately have the answer, avidya kama karma. Avidya means I do not know my true nature. When I do not know my true nature, a desire comes in my heart. If I had that, if I could achieve that, there is a desire. Once a desire comes, it is difficult for me to sit still. I'm forced to do something about it. And whenever I do any action out of a desire orientation, I incur punya or papa. And if these impressions are strong, it produces vasanas. And all these leads to the cycle of repeated birth and repeated deaths, what we call punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. This is a most wonderful verse from the Mundakopanishad. And this mantra should be there in our mind throughout the study of Drik, Drishya, Viveka, because I am here for this purpose. Vidyate Hridaya Granthi, Chidyante Sarva Samshaya, Kshiyanti Chasya Karmani, Tasmin Drishte Paravari. What am I here for? Tasmin Drishte Paravari. I need to get a clear vision about myself. Para means something beyond. And what is beyond? It's transcendental, the Paramarthika. It is something that cannot be touched by anything else in this world. So what is transcendental is para. Avara means something so close to me, something in and through. And if there is a nice word, this tasmin drishte, tasmin, the word paravare means immanent and transcendental, something that is utterly close to me. Nothing can be closer than that. That is my true nature, or Atma. And yet that Atma has nothing to do with my body. I mean, it is of a higher order of reality, and therefore it is asangatvam, or unaffected by anything that happens to my body, my mind, or to the world around me. Tasmin drishti. When I have that vision of myself, Then what happens? The knot in my heart becomes like the knot of a tie. It is disappeared. There is no knot at all. Avidya, kama, karma, gone. Chidyante sarva samshaya. Can you imagine that state when there is no doubt? Panaga began by saying all of us need to know about who am I, Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, Bandha, Moksha, Sadhana. Not that I know everything, but then I'm comfortable with the mysteries of life. That, you know, that feeling of ignorance is gone. All my doubts have been cleared. Kshiyante cha asya karmani. What a relief from all the karmas that affect my body and mind. I'm free from the burden of sanchita karma. I now know that I'm essentially a karta, a bhokta. I don't do anything at all. Everything happens in my presence. So there is no agami karma. Of course, there is prarabdha karma, but then the disidentification from the body is so clear that whatever happens to this body or mind cannot really affect me because now I have a clear vision of myself. Tasmin drishte paragare. This is the vision that we need to have. I'm here for to break the knot in my heart. Vidyate hridaya granthi. All right, this is the great text. We have many, many introductions, but then I want you again throughout the study of Drik, Drishya, Viveka to make one analysis all day. Now I am seeing so many things around me. Now the big question is, what am I seeing? Am I seeing this world, or having gone through that 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna tells me that this whole world is none other than Vishwarupa Ishvara. In the 7th verse of the 7th chapter, Sri Krishna says, My sarvam idam protam sutre manigana eva. I pervade everything in a very imperceptible manner. So therefore, whatever I see, I'm seeing only Sri Krishna. And that should be the vision. So that is what is called Drishya Viveka. I no longer see the world as a world, but I see the whole world as Sri Krishna, or from the words of the Upanishad, as Brahman in the form of existence. Then the next question is the Viveka about who is seeing. Am I seeing? Is my mind seeing? Is this Ahankara, this Dr. Timapa Hegde is seeing? Or am I seeing the seer? See that? I am seeing. But now my whole perspective is, am I aware of the one who is watching? So I have done two forms of Viveka. One is the world outside is not an ordinary world. It is either Vishwarupa, Ishvara, or Sri Krishna himself, or from the language of the Upanishads, I'm seeing Brahman in the form of existence. And then in every experience, I come in touch with the experiencer who is not my eyes, or the eyes, of course, have given me the information. My mind has given me the information, but I'm not sitting here as a person who's processing information, but I am aware of the one who is seeing, who is Parabrahma, Paramatma. The Hridaya Granthi operates in the form of Maya. Maya has got Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. Because of Avarana Shakti, I am ignorant of my true nature of Aham Brahmasmi. And because of Vikshepa Shakti, I identify with this Ahankara, and I think I am this limited body-mind, this Dr. Timapa Hegde. The world that I see also is a mixture. It is a mixture of Parabrahma, Paramatma, Sri Krishna, along with Nama Rupa. And we tend to forget Sri Krishna, or tend to forget Brahman as existence, and identify with Nama and Rupa. That means there is a wall, there is a computer, there is a camera. So I see all these things. So this is a problem created by the Avarana Shakti and the Vikshepa Shakti of Maya. Now, in Drik, Drishya, Viveka itself, you will come across a very beautiful verse to remember. Antaro Drik, Drishya, Veda. So that means internally, I need to make a distinction between, am I seeing it as the Ahankara, or I'm seeing it as the Atma? That is Antara Drishya Veda. Bahishchi Brahma Sargayu. When I see the world outside, am I seeing Brahman or am I seeing creation? Avrunoti Apara Shakti. All this is concealed by the great power of Mayaji, Sa Samsarasya Karana. And therefore, when I wake up and my mind wakes up, the Parabrahma Paramatma that I have been reduced from being a creator of this world to being a creature in this world. So therefore, what is the remedy for samsara? I have to make a double correction. I have to make a Drik, Drishya, Viveka from inside. If ignorance and wrong identification is the problem, the remedy is right knowledge and right identification. Now, am I seeing it as the ahankara or am I seeing as atma? This I have told 100 times. In every experience, the Kenopanishad says, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. I'm seeing so many objects around, but whom am I really seeing? I am Atma Brahma. So the right vision is to be able to see the seer, and that is the correction I do when I come from within. And what about the world outside? If ignorance and wrong identification is the problem and I see the world outside, instead of seeing the world as a world, I see it either as Vishwarupa Ishvara or I see it as existence, Sat Brahman. There are many texts that we have studied. It is like going to many pilgrim places. But there are some places which touch you more than other places. And I can assure you from my own experience, there are many texts that we have studied, but Drik Drishya Viveka has a potential to transform you far more than any other. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. The opening speaker for us, the first verse will be explained to us by Chetana. Chetana, please.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. What I experience, I am not. This is the fundamental Vedantic principle that we must remember. Shall I start from the beginning? Sorry.
Start again.
I'll just
again
start.
with Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. What I experience, I am not. This is the fundamental Vedantic principle that we must remember and what the Shastras are trying to, in various ways, to make us understand. Drik, Drishya, Viveka is one such text. In the Vedantic context, the word Viveka or discrimination means resolving confusion between the subject and the object, observer and the seen. Here, Drik is the subject, the observer, experiencer, the seer, and Drishyam is the object, the seen, experienced, or the observed. There should be a clear understanding between Drik and Drishya. But why do we need this discrimination or sorting out of this confusion? Normally, there's no confusion regarding me, the observer, and the objects I see around me. I know I am not the objects I see and observe. But sorting out is required based on how we view our body-mind complex. We falsely identify with the body sense-mind complex as the real I. Moreover, we are not aware of this blunder. This mixing up is called aviveka or adhyasa. And this one confusion is the cause of all our problems called samsara. And we must resolve this confusion to attain moksha. Drik Drishya Viveka becomes important because it helps us to analyze our personality. Now, the various layers of human personality have been dealt with in other texts too, like Shariratrayam and Atma, Panchakoshas and Atma. But here, the author tries another approach. He says all of us have 4 components: body, sense organs, mind, and the Atma. Of these 4 components, the body, sense, and mind are made up of matter, Panchabhutas. Hence, they are inert by themselves. They are achetana. But even though it is logically inert, they behave as though they are sentient. For example, the body can sense the external stimuli like heat, cold. The sense organs are capable of sensing shabda, sparsha, etc. Similarly, the mind is also capable of sensing emotions and thoughts. So, If the inert mind must function, if the inert must function as though sentient, they all must be borrowing sentiency from somewhere else. For example, the fan cannot rotate by itself. To rotate, it has borrowed its moving power from some other invisible source, and that is electricity. In the same way, the body, sense, and mind complex are all functioning, and therefore they must be blessed by some other invisible principle lending sentiency to it. That is why in the Kena Upanishad, the student asks, Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha Kene pranaha pratamaha pra iti yuktaha. That invisible sentiency lending principle is called Atma or the Sakshi, witness principle. And how does the Atma lend sentiency? It does not lend to all at the same time. There is a particular method. We can understand this with an example. Suppose I want to give a book to a friend who's sitting in the front. I can do it in two ways. One is I go directly and hand over the book to him, or give it to an intermediary person to hand over. Thus, through a series of exchange, I give the book to that person. And the intermediaries can be 1, 2, or 3. It varies. In the same way, the author says Atma lending consciousness to the mind, sense, and body is not happening directly, but in a gradual linear transference. So what are those stages? First, the Atma can lend consciousness only to the mind directly. It never lends consciousness to the sense organs. Thus, the Atma becomes the illuminator or the Drik, and the mind becomes the illumined Drishya. And when the mind becomes illumined or sentient, it gets the capacity to lend consciousness to the sense organs. Therefore, now the mind becomes the Drik, illuminator, and the sense organs becomes the illumined, the Drishya. Then the sense organs lend consciousness to the body, and therefore the sense organs now become the illuminator and the body, and through the body, the external world gets illumined. So thus the author here says the Atma is the Drik. When the Atma is the Drik and mind is Drishyam. When mind is Drik, sense organs are Drishyam. And when sense organs become Drik, body and the world become Drishyam. Thus, in a form of a gradual linear flow, the Atma illumines the whole world. When the mind and sense organs are absent, Atma does not illumine the external world directly. The mind and sense organs have a twofold status now. It's illumined and the illuminator, Drik and Drishyam. They are both Drishyam and the Drik. Now, when there are more than one illuminators, how do you differentiate them? Just like the sun is an illuminator without becoming illumined, becoming an illumined object, so too the Atma is the primary or the absolute illuminator. It's called the Atyantika illuminator, the absolute Drik. Whereas the mind and sense organs, like the moon, it is not the absolute illuminator because it is illumined also. So it is a relative illuminator, apekshika illuminator. So this is the first topic of Drik Drishya Viveka in this first sutra shloka, about the individual being a mixture of the absolute illuminator, the Sakshi, and the relative illuminator called the mind and sense organs. With this background, we'll go through the first shloka. He says, Rupam Drishyam. Forms and colors of the external world, including the body, are Drishyam or seen and experienced. And who's the experiencer? Lochanam Drik. The eyes are the experiencers, this Drik, the subject. Now, are the eyes the absolute seers? He says, no. Why? Tad Drishyam. The eyes themselves are experienced. And when the eyes become an object, who is the subject? He says, Driktu Manasam. Mind is the seer, the Drik, and the eyes are the Drishyam now. So the eyes here enjoy a twofold status. They're both the Drik and the Drishyam. Then what about the mind? Is it an absolute seer? He says, no. Why? Dhi vrittaya. Mental functions like thinking, doubting, worrying are entertained in the form of thoughts in the mind. And they are all Drishya, objects of experience. Every condition of the mind is intimately experienced. So if the mind is Drishyam, then what is the Drik? Sakshi Drik, he says. The original consciousness is the illuminator, the absolute Drik. Then the next question is, who is the seer of this Sakshi? If Sakshi is the observer, then Sakshi must be observed too. But the author says, Sakshi Drik Eva. It is an unobserved observer. It is an absolute observer. Therefore, na tu drishyate. You can never experience the Sakshi. Consciousness is ever the seer, never the seen. The mixing up of this absolute and relative illuminators, Drik and Drishyam, leads to samsara. And therefore, we need to make an inquiry. So what do you find on inquiry? All these three, body, mind, and sense organs, are clearly experienced by me. And once I know I am different from all of them, I am none of them. So the next crucial question is, then who am I? I am the subject, the witness Sakshi, that illumines the world through the body-mind sense complex. This is spiritual knowledge, and that alone gives moksha. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chetana, for giving a very nice explanation of this Sankshepa Sutra. This verse is a sort of a summary of what is going to come in the next few verses. Very important for all of us is, when I am seeing, ask yourself, is it the eyes that are seeing? Am I seeing because of the mind? Or am I seeing because of that witnessed Sakshi, that consciousness principle, which I know as Atma? That is why the Upanishad says, Prati Bodha Viditam Matam. In every experience, come in touch with the experiencer. The next two verses will be explained to us by Shiv Kumar Yadadam. Shiv, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the second verse, he says, Nilapita Sthula Sukshma Rasva Dhirgadi Vedataha Nana Vidhani Rupani Pasye Lochanam Ekadha. The forms, that is, the objects of perception, appear as varied on account of such distinctions as each color, that is blue, yellow, gross, subtle, or the size, gross, subtle, short, long, etc. The eye, on the other hand, sees them itself remaining one and the same. Next slide, sir. In the first Sangraha Shloka just now explained by Chetanaji, the author introduced three quarters or three illuminators or observers. Indriyani or sense organs, Manaha, mind, Sakshi, Atma. In the first 5 verses, the author is talking about the nature of the Tvam Padartha, the Jivatma. In the first quarter of the first verse, he says, Rupam Drishyam, Lochanam Drik. Forms are seen and the eyes are the seers. Elaborating and clarifying this, in this second verse, he says, Nana Vidhani Rupani Pasye Lochanam Ekadha. The observed objects are many, but the observing eye is only one. There is plurality in the Drishyam, whereas there is non-duality or there is only singularity in the Drik. As an observer in the room, I am the only one, but I am observing so many things. I, the observer, am one, but the observed are many. Not only many forms, but many colors too. Next slide, sir. Hence, in the second line of this verse, he says, Nila Pita Sthula Sukshma Rasva Dhirgadi Vedataha. There is differentiation of color, size, shape. Nila, blue, Pita, Sthula, Sukshma, Rasva is short, Dirga is long. Blue and yellow, when the author mentions, are only representative of the varied colors that we have. In blue or any of the primary colors itself for that matter, we have a range of depth of color and a range of hues. Added to that combination of the primary colors, we have a plethora of colors. In shapes, we have short, tall, long, stout, thin, and so on, ending up with an innumerable combination of shapes, forms, and colors. Next slide, sir. In spite of the plethora of shapes, forms, colors, Lochanam ekada pashyet, remaining single, the eyes see the plurality. Swami Paramarthanandaji highlights that when we see the tiniest objects like insects or large objects like mountains or animals like whales or elephants, our eyes neither become small to see the tiny objects, nor do they enlarge to see the larger objects. Remaining the same eyes see this deluge of creation. The objects with plurality in colors and forms change, but the seer is constant. In each plurality, there is variety, but the eye is one. Therefore, Drishyam are many, but Drik is only one. Next slide, sir. Next slide, sir. The takeaways of this verse. Every sense organ is a seer, and every relevant sense object is the seen. With respect to eyes, the object is the forms and colors. With respect to ears, it is sound, and thus sound, touch, forms, colors, taste, smell are all sense objects. Now, progressing to the third verse, next slide, sir. In this verse, the author says, Andya mandya patutveshu netra dharmeshu chaikadha sankalpaye manaha shrotratvagadav yojyatamidam. The characteristics of the eye, such as blindness, dullness, or sharpness, the mind being unity recognizes all of them. This also applies also to the ear, skin, and other organs of perception. In the second quarter of the first verse, the second seer was introduced. The second seer is the mind. It is explained in this third verse. The mind is the seer, while the sense organs are seen. Next slide, sir. Mind sees the sense organs by virtue of their perceptual power at three different levels, namely total or sharp perception, total lack of perception or non-perception, third, partial perception. Patutveshu, when perception is total, one can see clearly, perceive the objects. One can clearly perceive the objects. If we take our sense organ of sight with total or sharp perception, we can clearly perceive all the objects anywhere in the range, small, big, with color or black and white. Andhyam is the case of total loss of perception. The sense organ do not function at all. Mandhya, like a totally blind person whose eyes are totally dysfunctional or non-functional. Mandhyam or mandhyatvam. The partial perception is intermediary condition between the extremes of total perception and total non-perception. We have a range of partial perception, like dullness of sight, color blindness, blurred vision, clouding of the eyes, eye lenses, damaged retina, or increased pressure in the eyes are some of the examples of these intermediary conditions. These three, full function, full non-function, and partial function, are possible conditions for every sense organ. The author has just given the example of the eye, but this is possible for all the sense organs. These three conditions pertaining to the eyes experienced by us are mentioned in this verse: total blindness, partial function of the eyes, and total clear or sharp vision, which are experienced by us. Experienced by us, experienced by the mind, the seer number 2, that illumines or experiences these three conditions. Next slide, sir. Irrespective of any of the three conditions, the mind does not undergo any change. Total non-functioning or blindness of the eyesight will not make the mind non-functional. Dullness of the vision does not make the mind dull. The same mind, unaffected by the pluralities, perceives all the conditions of all sense organs or organs of perception. The eye perceives a variety of forms, colors, and conditions, yet the eye becomes the object of perception with respect to the mind. And the mind does not undergo any change. Therefore, the observed conditions are many, but the observer, the mind, is one. Next slide, sir. The author says, Shrotrat Vagadau Yojyatamidam. Here, Shrotra is ears. Tvag Adhau means etc. That is, other two senses, sense organs, the nose and the tongue. Idam Yojyatam. May you extend the same law that the mind is the seer and all the sense organs are seen. Thus, seer number 2 has been explained. With this, an important factor to be noted is that the sense organs are now seen and they are called relative seers, as they are seers as well as seen. Manaha sankalpayet. The mind experiences or illumines or perceives. The mind is the seer, seer number 2. In the next verse, the absolute seer, Swamiji says, the hero of Drik Drishya Viveka is explained. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Krishna.
Thank you very much for a very nice explanation of who is the seer 1 and seer 2, the sense organs and the mind. Swamiji also says nowhere such a wonderful analysis has been done of the different levels of seers. And for those of us in the field of neurology, it looks like a neurological evaluation of seeing, the whole process of seeing, how seeing happens from the sense organs to the mind and so on. Now, the level 3, the highest seer, will be described by Dr. Sanjay Banakal. Dr. Sanjay, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Drik Drishya Viveka is a Prakarana Grantha attributed to one of the Shankaracharyas of Sringeri, or it could be Vidyaranya, the author of Panchadashi. So in this text, the logic is employed for discerning the reality, wherein through this method, the inquiry into the nature of the individual is taken up. The logic followed in this technique is called Anvaya Vyatireka method, wherein the subject is introduced initially only to be negated later. For example, pot and the clay. Initially, the teacher introduces the pot and then he draws the attention towards the clay, which is the essential part of the pot. And then he says pot has borrowed the existence from the clay. Similarly, through this Drik Drishya Viveka method, the teacher is first introducing the world as the scene, and this world has a dependent existence. It doesn't have an independent existence because it requires the sense organs to be seen. So the sense organs in turn are being seen by the mind, and eventually the mind is illumined by the consciousness. This is how the seen and the seer, the relative seer and the absolute seer, which has already been mentioned by the initial speakers, will be followed in this text. Now, Drik, Drishya, Viveka is the discrimination of the seer and the seen. In other words, it is the subject-object discrimination. So in this text, 3 seers are enumerated, of which 2 are the relative seers and 1 is the absolute seer. A relative seer is one who becomes a seer from the standpoint of the scene or the object. But from a higher standpoint, the seer itself becomes the scene. Whereas an absolute seer can never be seen and is always this seer. Next slide. So the world is the absolutely seen, and whereas the sense organs, the mind, both are the relative seers, whereas the consciousness is the ultimate seer or the absolute seer. Now, if we try to inquire into the consciousness, who sees the consciousness, then we run into a logical problem known as the regressus ad infinitum. So the buck stops with consciousness. So which is the absolute seer. We've already seen 2 seers, which are being mentioned in the Drik, Drishya, Viveka. The ultimate seer, the seer number 3, is described in this verse number 4. Here, the mind is described to be witnessed by the consciousness. So the verse is Kamaha Sankalpa Sandeho Shraddha Ashraddha Dhrithitare Hri Dhir Bhir Ityeva Adin Bhasayate Ekada Chitihi. Next slide, please. Chitihi, that's the consciousness, the absolute seer. Ekada, remaining changeless. The consciousness does not change, whereas the scene changes all the time. What does it do? It illumines bhasayati. It illumines what? The mind. The consciousness illumines the mind. And the mind in turn illumines the sense organs, etc. The conditions of the mind, which is illumined by the consciousness, is described in this verse. They are, the next slide, please. The author says, Kamaha, that is desire. These are the conditions of the mind. Sankalpaha, the mind plans. Sandeha, doubt is there whether it will work out or not. Then faith, the Shraddha. Ashraddha is the lack of faith. Dhritihi is the willpower. Itare is the opposite of, that is the lack of willpower. Hri means shyness or modesty. Dhi is the knowledge power. Bhi is the fear that one expresses. Ityevam Adi. All these different conditions of the mind are described here. All these are witnessed by whom? The absolute seer, that is the consciousness. So consciousness is ever the seer and never the seen. It is ever the experiencer and never the experience. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we note that during the whole process of Drik, Drishya, Viveka, there is a duality that is maintained through this method. However, scriptures reveal whatever is seen or experienced is not real. Hence, consciousness, the absolute seer, is the only reality. Shankaracharya says in his one of the verses, Drishyo dvau padarthaustha paraspara vilakshanam. He says Drik, Drishya, they are 2 different things. And they are 2 totally different. That's what he says in the first line. That's the Dvaitam there. But Drik Brahma, Drik is the absolute seer. What is Drishyam? Drishyam is just Maya. It is just our delusion. This is the declaration of Vedanta. That is Sarva Vedanta Dindimaha. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay, for giving us a very nice explanation of verse number 4, which talks about the highest seer. That means anytime I am seeing, am I aware of this seer? And when you hear this verse, you hear a series of words: Kamaha, Sankalpa, Shraddha, Ashraddha, Dhriti, Adhriti, Ri, Vi. The moment these words came, I knew that these words were somewhere in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that we are studying is like a forest. And without a guidance, you will not know where it is. And although I had, have gone through all the chapters, whatever I tried, I could not find where it was. Fortunately, when you listen to Swamiji, whenever he is speaking, he keeps quoting Brihadaranyaka Upanishad so many times. And whenever he quotes, he not only says from which chapter, and he mentioned in one of his talks that it is from chapter 1 and which particular Brahmana it is, Sapta Anna Brahmana of the first chapter, and then you find out it is verse number 3. And for the word there is Sankalpa. So he is. These are all words. Our author, most likely Vidyaranya Swami, has made 2 commentaries on the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And so some of these words he has picked up from there. As we proceed with our study of Drik, Drishya, Viveka, I'll bring you to the awareness of this mantra once again. Vidyate Hridaya Granthi. Why are we studying Drik, Drishya, Viveka? Let this knot in our heart, which has been there for a long time, get disentangled. The knot of disentanglement means through the study of Drik, Drishya, Viveka, which is a kind of a Prakarana Grantha, which will analyze who am I? Am I this body? Am I the sense organs? Or am I someone other than this? Why am I into samsara? Is a wonderful analysis, and hopefully we will be able to have Tasmin Drishte Paravare. Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Thank you very much, sir, and our dear speakers, for explaining these first few verses of Drik, Drishya, Viveka so clearly. This sets the foundation for the rest of our study. This Drik, Drishya analysis is a very interesting exercise for us to do ourselves. Who is seeing the mind? Who is seeing or perceiving the inputs from the sense organs? Who is seeing the world? And in reverse order also. It all makes perfect logical sense. This is the greatness of Vedanta. There is no mysticism or magic, just perfect logic. We will meet again on the 19th of May to listen to our sir explain the first chapter of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. This vast Upanishad is usually not studied due to its sheer volume and difficulty. Hence, we are grateful to our Guru, Swami Paramarthananda, and to our teacher, Hegde sir, for bringing us the essence of this great Brihat Upanishad. We will conclude with our Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you.